Aside from her air conditioning fixing skills, SueZann Bosler is indeed a very amazing woman, and she has an extraordinary story to share that she's going to share with us this evening. Miss SueZann Bosler, come forward.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. There you go. We're awake. Abe, how much time do we have? And questions at the end of all of us? Is that okay, or how do you want it? Okay. A lot of you already know my story, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible.
Not everybody knows.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, there's so many stories to tell, though, so it's just another story. But as you know, my name is SueZann Bosler from South Florida. I watched my father, Reverend Bill Bosler, get stabbed to death 24 times in front of me. And I only got stabbed 5, left for dead, from this man named Bernard Campbell. It happened on December 22nd, 1986, and that was 3 days before Christmas. The reason it was more intense because we were expecting to go see my dad's and my first niece that was just born, and my dad never got to see her. They caught the man, Bernard Campbell, a week to the day later, and it was hard for me because I spent all that time in the hospital because two of the stab wounds went into my head, so it shattered my skull, it went into my brain, and they had to take some of my brain out and all this side of my head. But it was not my concern. All I thought about was my father. They would not tell me for a whole week if my dad was alive or dead. I didn't know it. So it was really tough for me. I didn't really care about myself at the time because I really knew that I was going to go to heaven, but I was concerned wanting my dad still here because he did so much work for people and helping them in their lives in all different areas that they needed my dad still in that area that we lived, which was kind of like a ghetto. So when he was caught, they came in to tell me, and I'll never forget it because it was my mom, my 2 sisters, and the doctor, and of course the priest at the end. And me being a PK, everybody knows what a PK is, right?
Preacher's kid.
Thank you, preacher's kid. I'm supposed to know all this stuff that goes on, right? When a preacher comes into the room, you know, I went through all these baptisms, weddings, and funerals, blah, 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 you know. So I knew something wasn't right, because that whole week they had lied to me that my dad was alive. So when they told me, it was that moment where I really went ballistic, because I had such faith that I saved my dad's life, you know, when I went to the phone and everything, but I didn't. So at that moment, I actually wanted to die. I didn't care about life anymore. It didn't matter, because I felt so guilty about not saving my dad, you know. And they had to sedate me because I was trying to grab all the tubes and everything off of me, and I just wanted to die right there on that floor, but they wouldn't let me. It was that time on, I didn't think anymore if he's alive. I had to think about, am I going to forgive this man, Bernard Campbell? And let me tell you, I don't know about anybody else, but I can tell you this, is that me being a preacher's kid, we knew so much about forgiveness and all this, that it's supposed to be easy and fast, and you knew how to do it. Well, I obviously did take the Forgiveness 101 for somebody murdering your family member, you know. So it was kind of a little more difficult because I was a little damaged here too. So I can admit to you that at the beginning, I said I forgive Bernard Campbell, but I lied to people for 5.5 years that I forgave him. I did not forgive him. In my mind, I would configure all these things that I could do to him to hurt him. I wanted to beat him up. I wanted to hurt him bad. I wanted to knock his teeth out. I wanted to do all these bad things to this man. And I didn't know how to deal with it because, of course, there's not a 101 on that, too, of how to deal with your hate inside, your bitterness, your vengeance, you know, that you get. And people started asking me, SueZann, do you forgive this man? I'm going, yeah, I forgive him, but I'm going, why don't I feel better? I did not feel better. And it took me a while to figure out why, because I went through these trials, 10.5 years, the pre-trial, the first sentencing, the second sentencing. I'm sitting up there on the witness stand, and I look at him and I say, James Bernard Campbell, I forgive you. Whether you accept it or not, I forgive you. And it was at that moment that I just didn't say the words from orally. I said the words from my heart. I forgive you. And that's when I really, truly knew what forgiveness was all about and what it meant and how it felt. That was the first moment I ever understood it myself. And let me tell you something. Those 5.5 years that I was still working for this man to get off of death row because the first sentencing put him on death row, I was even 10 times stronger fighting for his life after I forgave him. And I realized that all of those years, I was not hurting him, because somebody told me one time, she said, SueZann, you know, when I finally admitted I hated and everything, she goes, SueZann, he's 900 miles away. He's not feeling any of your pain. He's not feeling your vengeance. He's not feeling your anything. He's going on with his life. The pain is going right back into yourself. You're hurting yourself, not him. I'm going, wow, you're right. Because that's exactly what I did. I was eating away. It was eating away with myself. I was killing myself for having those feelings for him, wanting him dead. And when I forgave him, let me tell you something. I was a new woman. I was a new woman on a different mission. And those next years, he got death penalty again in the second sentencing trial, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I thought I was supposed to trust these state attorneys, because they said, oh yeah, SueZann, we'll work with you, we'll work with you. They had the state attorney's office, within the office there was the victim services that were, you know, patting me and giving me coffee and supporting me supposedly. And I said, man, after he got the death penalty the second time, that's it. They're not working with me. I had to hire my own lawyer to protect my victims' human rights to be in that courtroom, because they would not do anything. I mean, all of us, I'm going to say a lot of us, if you're on TV, you're in the newspaper, I mean, you see the newspaper and TV, you see the person get up there on the stand, they can say, I want that person that killed my loved one to get the death penalty. And we saw that all the time. I thought, well, if they can say it, I can say my opinion too, that I'm against the death penalty. And when I tried to do that, they wouldn't let me. And I'm thinking to myself, something's not right with this. Because I would see after, you know, behind the judge and all these words about equal justice and stuff, behind the judge, and I'm thinking, this is not right, something's not right here. And sometimes I even thought, am I in the United States? The equalized community democracy. So I didn't do what they wanted me to do. I get up on the stand, and right before I witness, the judge asked me, SueZann, if we allow you to say your opinion about the death penalty, what will you say? Or your opinion? I said, well, I would tell you I'm against it, my father's against it, we're working hard to get him off the death row, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't say that, I couldn't say that, I couldn't. Nothing I could do. But before this happened, the lawyer that I hired had taught me the things that I could do legally for my part to be against the death penalty. And the prosecutor went over the deposition with me many times of all my answers, how they were supposed to be those times before. Well, he wasn't expecting my answers this time. He would ask my name, I gave my name, he asked my address, and then he asked me, SueZann, what is your occupation? And I said, as I'm not looking at him, I said, I'm a hairdresser and I work to abolish the death penalty.
Right.
And it was quiet in that courtroom for a couple of seconds before he pretended with the jury there to know my answer. Asked me another couple questions, pretend it was okay, started the sidebar, and that's where the drama started after that, okay? He turns to me after the jury's out and he says, SueZann, if you ever say anything about the death penalty again, we will put you in jail for 6 months and fine you. And I'm thinking back on the equality, justice type of thing here, you know, and I'm going, wait a second. What is going on here? Who is on trial here? Who is the criminal here? It was a horrible experience for me.